Hello everyone, it's Seth, probably better known as Ephara, and it's time for another daily dose of March of the Machine spoilers. So we are marching towards the end of spoiler season. Tomorrow we get the full set, but today we got some sweet stuff. We got a battle with one of the strongest backsides I think we've seen so far. We got our last Praetor in Urabrask, so we got a ton to talk about, which means we should probably jump right into it. Start talking sweet new March of the Machines cards. Before we do though, some reminders. And a big one today is, it's Commander Precon spoiler day. So if you want to see more about the Commander Precon decks, Tomer's going to be covering them over on the MTGGoldfish Commander YouTube. We also have an entire Precon to show off for all of you on the MTGGoldfish Commander podcast. So I'll link that stuff in the description once it goes live in a bit. Make sure to check that out as well. Also, if you need any of these cards, you can snag them from our awesome sponsor Card Kingdom over at cardkingdom.com/MTGGoldfish. And to keep up on all the latest spoilers throughout the day, you should head on over to MTGpreviews.com. Anyway, let's talk March of the Machines. So first up today, we got our final Praetor from the set in Urabrask. And I gotta say, traditionally, Urabrask is like the worst Praetor every time we get a cycle of Praetors, but I think it might be different this time. I actually think Urabrask might be the best of the Praetor cycle. So 4 mana 4/4, it's a red card, it's a legendary Praetor, it is first strike. It says when you cast an instant or sorcery spell, it deals 1 damage to target opponent and you add a red mana, then you can pay a red, exile it, return it transformed, only as a sorcery and only if you've cast 3 or more instant or sorcery spells this turn. So I think Urabrask is the easiest Praetor to flip, and it also has probably the most competitively costed front side, like a 4 mana 4/4 with first strike and an extra ability that's dealing damage and potentially generating mana, reducing the cost essentially on your instants and sorceries. That's a pretty reasonable card. The backside, the great work. Lore counter number 1, 3 damage to target opponent in each creature they control. Lore counter number 2, make 3 treasure tokens. Lore counter number 3, until end of turn, you may cast instant or sorcery spells from any graveyard. If a spell would be put in the graveyard this way, exile it instead, and you flip the great work back to Urabrask, which is actually incredibly powerful. So if you think about this card, first off, it is by far the best Urabrask. Like past Urabrask, like I said, have mostly been the worst members of their cycles, or at least the least exciting members of the cycles. I think this is the first time we're going to get a Praetor cycle where Urabrask is going to be the most played of the bunch. If you think about the front side, it's kind of like Burgee, obviously only works with instants and sorceries rather than any spell, but it's essentially giving you a 1 mana discount on your instants and sorcery spells. You get that mana back, a red mana when you cast one. It's also like a really big electrostatic field. You get to ping your opponent when you cast an instant or sorcery, and then you're getting Defiler of Instinct stats, essentially a 4/4 first strike, little sad against Shieldred, but a pretty reasonable body overall. So I've seen some people say, this card's gonna be hard to flip. Like, I think one of the upsides of this card is it's the easiest Praetor to flip, but some people don't agree. Well, let me introduce you to a card called Arclight Phoenix. When Arclight Phoenix came out, a lot of people, including myself, underestimated it because casting 3 instants or sorceries in a turn to get it back from the graveyard actually seems like a lot of work, but it turned out that Arclight Phoenix is kind of busted. It became a staple all the way back to Modern. It was very good in Standard. Casting 3 instants and sorceries is not actually that difficult if that's the goal of your deck, and doubly so with Urabrask. Obviously, the downside compared to Arclight Phoenix is Urabrask, you do have to spend 4 mana to get it on the battlefield. Arclight, you just get in your graveyard, it does its thing without any mana being necessary. But Urabrask, once it's on the battlefield, it actually makes it pretty easy to chain together those instants and sorceries because it's giving you back a mana whenever you cast one. So if you think about Standard, like even if you just stick to mono red, Ancestral Anger is essentially a free card. Thrill of Possibility is going to cost 1 mana. Big Score is going to cost 1 mana. It seems pretty easy to just chain together effects like this and flip Urabrask right away if that's what you're trying to do. Either waiting till like turn 5 or turn 6 and playing Urabrask and going for the insta flip, or just running it out on turn 4 and then the next turn untapping and flipping it. If you reach into blue cards, which makes a lot of sense because we got a lot of Is It Spellslinger stuff in Standard, it also gets even easier. Obviously, like, you can't cast Consider with the mana that Urabrask makes, but still, the red mana can give you a discount on Impulse or Thirst for Discovery. So you just chain these cards together, flip your Urabrask, and the backside's very, very strong. And as I mentioned, we got a ton of pieces for some some sort of spellslinger deck. We got things that make tokens, third pass Iconoclast, Monastery Mentor coming back, Chrome Host Seed Shark. We got Delvers that can flick, Vindictive, Flamestokers, Mercurial Spell Dancers. So there are a ton of pieces to build like Izzet Spellslinger, Jeskai Spellslinger, where the Urabrask being a super key piece to this deck. You play it, you get a bunch of damage as you're casting your spells, you flip it, and then the backside is kind of ridiculous. You get a one-sided Anger of the Gods with 3 treasure tokens like Itsushi, and then that last lure counter is a Past in Flames, but in a lot of ways it's way better than Past in Flames. Not only can you use your opponent's graveyard, which is kind of hilarious, worth pointing out, you do have to pay the right colors of mana. The 3 treasure tokens help there, but that's still a bit of an issue. You're not going to be able to just cast everything. It doesn't fix your mana fully, but it's a Past in Flames that is going to work with Urabrask on the battlefield. Because the Great Work is going to flip back into Urabrask, what happens is you get your Past in Flames mode, Urabrask comes back, and then you get this like weird grape shot on the battlefield. Essentially, you just recast all the spells in the graveyard. Everyone is dealing damage with Urabrask. If you want to, you could even flip Urabrask again at the end of this chain because you're going to cast a ton of spells from the graveyard and start the process over again. So this is just going to keep looping. Once you flip it once, you're just going to keep going through this process. If you don't win with the first Great Work flip in the first Past in Flame, well, in a couple of turns you get to do it again. So that is absolutely ridiculous. As far as Standard is concerned, outside of a Spellslinger deck, which seems like an obvious home, could also be a really interesting card for just a burn deck. We got like Play with Fire, Lightning Strike, Stoke the Flames, add in some card draw, you got Urabrask, you can flip it, eventually you just reuse all your burn and win the game. Could also show up in older formats in Arclight Phoenix decks. The question is going to be, is this better than like playing a Crackling Drake? I think that would be the main competition for the Urabrask slot. I don't know. On one hand, Urabrask does give you a way to win without your graveyard. You just cast a bunch of spells and burn your opponent out of the game. On the other hand, its backside, in most powerful mode, the Past in Flames mode, is still graveyard dependent. So if your opponent shuts down your graveyard, it's not going to be that great. Well, Crackling Drake gets around that, but I think it's worth trying in an Arclight Phoenix deck. And maybe we see like Mono Red Phoenix could make a comeback. I think that's a possibility. Could also be really good in just a prowess deck where you're playing Swift Spears and Soulscar Mage and slinging a bunch of spells. I've also seen people mention Storm. I don't think Urabrask makes it in Storm in older formats. Like, we've seen some fringe Storm builds with Burgi. Urabrask kinda does that, but if you look at like Modern Storm or Legacy Storm, I think it's just too slow. I think you would rather just Past in Flames right away, win the game, than Urabrask, flip it, go through a couple of lore counters. It's really, when you think about it, Past in Flames would suspend 2 almost, unless you have Proliferate synergies or something, which you're probably not going to have in Modern Storm or Legacy Storm. So I think the slowness of it is a problem for being a Storm staple in older formats, which is why I'm more excited about it in like a Prowess deck or whatever, a Spellslinger deck than a dedicated Storm deck. On the other hand, in Commander, this seems great in Storm decks. Obviously, it's a legend, so you can just play it as your commander, kind of like a Burgi or whatever, but it's also an easy inclusion in anything like Eruth, Niv Mizzet, Kyker, Viran, Mizzix of the Niv Magus, any Spellslingery Storm style deck. This card is ridiculous. Like, if you're playing a Spellslinger Storm deck, you're going to be casting a ton of instants and sorceries. All of them are essentially one less to cast like Burgi because of Urabrask's ability, and then the backside is eventually probably going to win you the game when you get to the Past in Flames mode. And in Commander, you can throw in some Proliferate synergies if you want to try to speed through that, and you can do that in Standard as well. So Urabrask, I'm going to call it now. I think this is the best of the new Praetor cycle. I think when we look back in 3 months, 6 months, a year from now, I think this is the one that's going to see the most play, in part because it's the easiest to flip. The other members of the cycle, they are powerful, and their backsides are ridiculous, probably even more ridiculous than the Great Works. However, Urabrask, the Arclight Phoenix flip mode, is just so easily attainable that I think the other more busted Praetors, with more busted Saga sides, like Elish, Norn, or Shieldred, I just don't know if you can flip them consistently enough. Like Urabrask, if you want to flip this, you can do it super easily, and once you flip it, and you start going back and forth between the Great Works, giving you the Past in Flames with Urabrask out, and then flipping Urabrask again to start the process over, you are going to win the game super, super quickly. So Best Urabrask ever, best Praetor in the cycle, super excited for this card. We also got another rare battle, an Invasion of Theros. So Invasion of Theros, 3 mana white battle, 4 defense counters. When it ETBs, you get to tutor your library for an Aura God or Demigod card. Reveal it, put it in your hand, and then shuffle. And then the backside is a new Ephara, Ephara Ever Sheltering, a 4/4 legendary enchantment creature god. It has lifelink and indestructible as long as you control at least 3 other enchantments, which if you're playing Invasion of Theros, you're probably going to have because you're going to be an Enchantress deck most likely. And then whenever another enchantment enters the battlefield under your control, you draw a card. So essentially, the front side is a tutor for auras and gods and demigods. The backside is one of the strongest enchantresses we've ever seen, is a 4/4 lifelinking indestructible enchantress. So the front side of this card, how good is it? And I think that is up for debate. We've seen a lot of white narrow tutors. That's something that white has gotten more and more of. If you just want to tutor up auras, Open the Armory is kind of a cheaper version. Heliod's Pilgrim is same mana cost but gives you immediate body. If you want to tutor up gods, any legendary tutor or enchantment tutor like Search for Glory will work. So the front side, it's not horribly costed, but to really fully get its value, you're going to need a deck that has auras and also gods. Like if all you're doing is searching up auras, there's better options. If all you're doing is searching up gods, there's probably better options as well. But if you have a deck with both, it gets pretty exciting, and it is kind of on, right? Like Idyllic Tutor, Search for Glory, a little bit more flexible, but 3 mana is kind of the going rate for these white tutors. So I think the front side is absolutely fine. The question is, do we have a deck in Standard to take advantage of this? God-wise, I assume you're probably tutoring up Heliod Radiant Dawn, which is an enchantment creature god that works really well in an Enchantress style deck. We also have Light Paws. Invasion of Theros might be a little slow for Light Paws, although maybe for Standard Light Paws, it'll be perfectly fine. And then the backside of this card, though, that is the real payoff. Like, if you can flip this, and one of the nice things about tutoring up an aura is you can hopefully tutor up an aura to put on a creature to give it flying or to boost its power, so you can flip Invasion of Theros right away. And once you get the backside, this backside is really, really good. Like, 4/4 First Strike Lifelink, indestructible, already good. I'm assuming you're gonna have 3 enchantments. If you don't have 3 enchantments, it gets a lot weaker. And then the Enchantress mode is also really good. It's like a indestructible Fleet Foot Dancer combined with a Sethis Harvest Hand, which is an incredibly strong card for an Enchantress deck. And we do have a lot of pieces for an Enchantress deck. So maybe the way we play this is we play the front side, and it's okay, but not super exciting, with the goal being to get to the backside. If you think about auras that are commonly played, the big one's probably Ossification. We also mentioned Heliod as a god that you can tutor up that would work in an Enchantress deck. So maybe we're not like fully embracing the aura mode. Maybe we're playing Invasion of Theros with 1 copy of Heliod in our deck in a place at Ossification. Maybe we got like a Curse of Silence as a 1-of or a sideboard card, but maybe that's good enough. And then we're hoping to just flip it very quickly and get the Ephara, and the Ephara is going to win us the game. It's a very worthy payoff for some sort of Hallowed Haunting deck. So I'm actually very hyped to try Standard Enchantress, but I think this is one of the battles that you are playing it to flip. The backside is strong enough that it is often going to be worth it, I think, to give up 4 damage and focus on flipping this, because Ephara is kind of ridiculous. Also, really cute in a curse deck. Remember, curses are technically auras, so if you're playing some sort of curse-themed deck, this is snagging your Curse of Misfortune, your Cruel Reality, your Overwhelming Splendor, and then if you flip it, you're drawing cards as you cast your auras and your curses. In older formats, I think it's going to be too slow. Like, there are Light Paws / Core Spirit Dancer / Throm / Boggles decks in Pioneer, in Modern, in Historic. In Historic, I think it's a non-starter, because in Historic auras, you're a Lurrus deck, and you're not going to give up Lurrus for this. Lurrus is just incredibly busted. In a format like Pioneer or Modern, the card's powerful, but I'm guessing it's a little bit too slow. The main upside of playing like a Core Spirit Dancer, Light Paws, Throm, or a style deck is the decks are super fast, and you want to kill your opponent super, super quickly before your opponent draws into their answers to ruin your game plan. I don't think you can afford to spend 3 mana to cast Invasion of Theros, to get an aura, to play the next turn. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Ephara is just so good that it's worth it anyway, but I'm guessing it's a bit too slow for Modern and Pioneer. So one place this will shine, I think, is in Commander, although this card is very, very, very weird color identity wise. So if you look at the front side of this card, it is a mono white card. The back side though, even though it doesn't have a mana cost printed on it, you can see the little color identifier by legendary enchantment creature god. It's a white blue card. So this can't actually go in Sethis, which is the most popular enchantress commander, which is a little bit awkward because of color identity rules. On the other hand, there are plenty of enchantress decks in Commander that do have white and blue mana and are very popular. Either Zur, honestly, Tetsuva, Estrid, Kestra, any of these decks, I think Invasion of Theros is going to be awesome. In Commander, I think this card's just great. A 3-mana tutor's fine. Like, yeah, sure, maybe it's 1 mana too expensive, but you're playing Commander, that's not a big deal. You don't got to have the most efficient card in every slot. And then the backside is ridiculously strong, and you should be able to flip it easily because you're going to have 3 opponents. So just choose the opponent that doesn't have any defense to be the one to defend the battle, and you should be able to flip it in 1 or 2 turns and get Ephara, which again is just a ridiculous card. So I think Invasion of Theros, I really like this card. This is one that I think the front side is fine, if unexciting, but the back side is so good that I actually think it's going to be worth focusing your deck on flipping it in Standard and in Commander, but probably a little too slow for older 60 card formats. We also got a few lower rarity battles, like Invasion of Pyrulea, a 2-mana Simic 4 defense counter battles. When it enters a battlefield, you get to scry 3, and then you reveal the top card of your library. If it's a land or double face card, you get to draw that card. And then the backside is Gargantuan Slabhorn, a 4/4 trample ward 2 that gives your other transform permanents trample and ward 2. So at first when I saw this, I was like, I don't know. You gotta have a lot of double face cards or land. If you're just drawing a land, it's not super exciting. But then I thought more about it, and in our current Standard, we have a ton of double face cards. We got all the stuff coming in March of the Machines, all the Praetors, all the battles. We have Fable of the Mirror Breaker, we got Wedding Announcement. Pretty much every set in Standard is built around double face cards, so this is actually surprisingly flexible. This is like, play it on turn 2, scry 3, put Wedding Announcement on top of your deck, draw it. Scry 3, put Fable of the Mirror Breaker on top of your deck, draw it. Or Invasion and New Phyrexia, or Vorinclex, whatever. It seems pretty possible that you can build a deck where you're usually hitting a double face card, and not just a double face card, but a really good double face card. And then you have the land mode is kind of a backup. So I think in that context, this is actually a pretty good card just for the front side, being a way to churn through your deck. And then the back side is actually kind of funny. Giving your wedding festivities trample, always super helpful. Get in there, Anthem. But seriously though, the ward 2 is actually huge. The trample is, I guess, nice. You flip a Brutal Cathar or something and it has trample, but giving your Fable the Mirror Breaker once it flips ward 2, or your Brutal Cathar once it flips ward 2, that's gonna make it hard for your opponent to actually kill your stuff. So I think there is some reason to flip this card as well. So Invasion of Pyrulea, I actually think this card might be kind of good in specific decks. We also got Invasion of New Capenna in Orzhov Uncommon Battle, 2 mana, 4 defense counters. When it ATBs, you can sack an artifact or creature. When you do, exile target artifact or creature an opponent controls. And then the backside is Holy Frazzle Cannon, a 1 mana to equip equipment. This says when equipped creature attacks, put a +1/+1 counter on that creature and each other creature you control that shares a creature type with it. So the front side of this battle, it's basically a bad Rite of Oblivion. Rite of Oblivion that can only sack some of your permanents. Thankfully, artifact or creature means you can still sack Wedding Announcement tokens, blood tokens, treasure tokens. You obviously don't get the flashback mode, but it's very comparable to a slightly worse Rite of Oblivion. And then the backside, there isn't really any direct comparison. It's like a shared triumph almost, but one that can snowball. Like if you start attacking with this and growing your team, every turn you attack, your team's going to get bigger, and it's only 1 to equip, which is actually pretty competitively costed. So obviously, if you're going to play this, you want a lot of creatures of the same type. Like the more creatures of the same type you have, the better this is going to be. Right now in Standard, what do we have for big tribal decks? We have humans, knights are getting support. We have soldiers is very popular. Is it possible that this card could show up in those decks? Like, can we make it work in those decks? It would mostly require splashing another color, which is a little bit awkward, but it might be powerful enough to consider, especially in a tribe like soldiers that has sack fodder and soldier tokens or whatever. But I think the main home for this card might not actually be tribal decks. It might be token decks. If you think about the token producers we have in Standard, they tend to naturally produce tokens of the same type. Like Wedding Announcement can give you 3 humans. Skrell of Side can be giving you a might each turn. Invasion of Phyrexia just puts a bunch of knights on the battlefield. And I think that might be the best home. In token decks, sacrificing a token to kill your exile, your opponent's best thing, is really powerful. And then Holy Frazzle Cannon is going to grow all the tokens with the same name because they're naturally going to be the same type. So I think that's actually where I'm most excited about this. I'm not sure I'm going to try to splash it in like soldiers or humans or knights, but in a token deck, like with might tokens or Wedding Announcement tokens or whatever, then I think this card could actually be pretty good. Speaking of our new Night Lord, we also got Marshal of Zhalfir, which is a pretty good Night Lord. 2 mana, 2/2, other knights you control get +1/+1, and you can pay 1 white and 1 blue and tap it to tap another target creature. So a 2 mana Lord with upside. The question is, do we have enough knights to make this work in Standard? And the answer is sort of. Like, we do. There are enough knights to build Knight Tribal. We got Adeline, that's probably the best knight in Standard. We got a bunch of new stuff like Invasion of Phyrexia, Nightmare of Theros, Invasion of Belladon, coming in March of the Machines. We got Sunrise Cavalier, always an underrated knight. So there are enough pieces to build a knight deck. Will a Knight Tribal deck be better than a Soldier Tribal deck, or be better than a Human Tribal deck? Probably not. I think that's kind of the issue. Knights is a little bit underdeveloped as a tribe at this point. There's not a really good 1-drop, while humans and soldiers have multiple good 1-drops. There's not a lot of good payoffs. I guess if you flip Invasion of New Phyrexia, you get a payoff into Fairy. So I think that there are pieces to build knights, and we will build knights, but I'm expecting it not to be as good as the other tribal decks in Standard. Although, I will say, I might be a little bit hesitant to rank this too highly because of Circle of Loyalty. I was really high on knights when Throne of Eldraine came out a few years ago, to the point where I picked Circle of Loyalty to be one of the strongest cards from Eldraine, which in hindsight didn't age all that well. And then knights just like totally flopped and did nothing. So maybe I'm a little bit too scared to pick knights to be really good again after getting burned so hard by Circle of Loyalty. But I'm hopeful that they will. Maybe this card actually makes Circle of Loyalty good. Maybe instead of being an idiot, actually a prophet. They just knew it was going to take a couple years, and then Circle of Loyalty would be busted. So Marshal of Zhalfir, really good Night Lord. How competitive are knights? That we're going to have to wait and see. We also got the Invasion of Amonkhet, which is a pretty fun battle. So it's a Dimir battle. It's 3 mana, 4 defense counters. When ATBs, each player mills 3 cards. Then each opponent discards a card, and you draw a card. And then the backside is Lassotep Convert, a 4/4 zombie that says you may have it enter the battlefield as a copy of any creature card in a graveyard, except it's a 4/4 black zombie in addition to other types. So Invasion of Amonkhet, I think this card has uses. If you think about the front side, it's essentially a one-shot disinformation campaign, like with the upside of actually milling some cards, which is kind of a bonus, especially with the backside of the card. Disinformation campaign is a bit of Standard play, but that was in large part because of its repeatability. When you surveil, you bounce it back to your hand and do it again and just empty your opponent's hand. You don't get the repeatability with Invasion of Amonkhet, but if you're trying to mill your opponent out or fill your graveyard, this isn't the worst. It is technically a 2-for-1. Like, you play this, your opponent discards, you draw, you're getting a 2-for-1 for 3 mana. The backside is basically body double, except without the combo potential, because if you like sack it or whatever, it's going to go back to its battle form rather than being a creature, so you're not going to be able to loop it into Revel Arc combos or whatever, but still like a pretty powerful creature, especially in a world where some decks are trying to get Atraxas in the graveyard and Titan of Industries in the graveyard, and being able to copy one of those seems kind of ridiculous. The other upside of this card is we have one of the best mill cards in a while in Standard right now, and Jace the Perfected Mind. The problem with building Jace mill is there's just not a lot of good support mill cards, so Jace has to kind of try to do it all on his own, and if you don't draw Jace, it goes really poorly. Invasion of Amonkhet seems like a nice piece to that. If you want to try to build like Dimir mill, yes, it's only milling 3, but again, it's a 2-for-1, it's helping set up your Jaces, so maybe this will help make a mill deck a thing in Standard. And as I mentioned, like, there's decks trying to get things in the graveyard, even discounting the ability to like mill your opponent's Atraxa or Titan of Industry, and then copy it with Lazotep Convert. Maybe you're trying to fill your graveyard. You're a self-mill deck, and you got Urborg Lurglyphs, an old Stick Fingers, your Reanimator deck. Then this goes up even more in value because you're filling your graveyard, setting up your reanimation, and then later in the game, you can potentially use Lazotep Convert to copy a Titan of Industry that you milled or something. So seems very, very good in self-mill decks as well. My only real question for the card is, there's so many really strong 3-drops in Standard. Like, that's one of the most powerful slots on Standard curves. Most decks are going to have Fable the Mirror Breaker, Wedding Announcement, Adeline, Corpse Appraiser. Is Invasion of Amonkhet on that level? I would say in a generic sense, no. It's not going to be a Fable the Mirror Breaker or a Wedding Announcement where you can play it in literally any deck that can cast it, and the card's going to be great. I think this is more for that dedicated self-mill deck or a mill your opponent out deck. In that deck, I think this actually is a very, very strong 3-drop. So essentially a really strong card, but a little bit narrow in the decks that'll actually want to play it. Finally today, just a couple lower rarity cards, honestly. Waiting for the big dump tomorrow when we get the full set. But Rampaging Geoderm seems like a fine limited card for flipping battles. 4-mana 3/3 Trample Haste Dinosaur Beast. When it attacks, target attacking creature gets +1/+1 until end turn, but if it's attacking a battle, you get a +1/+1 counter instead. So this is essentially Rampaging Raptors at home or Thundering Raju at home. It does some of the same things. I think in 60 card constructed formats, outside of budget concerns, I don't think there's any reason to play Rampaging Geoderm over these other two options. However, in Limited, this seems like a really solid threat for some sort of Gruul Battles deck, so I think that'll be the home for this card. Not quite good enough for Constructed just because we have other cards that are very similar but a little bit better, but in Limited, a very good option. Finally, Scornblade Berserker. I think it's mostly a limited card. It is only 1 mana, and it can make anything sackable, which is kind of nice. So if you're trying to trigger a death trigger on something, it is a cheap way to do that thanks to backup, but I would be surprised if it really saw constructed play. So anyway, that brings us to the end of our daily March of the Machine spoilers for today. So what do you think of Urabrask? What do you think of these other cards? Let me know in the comments. Oh yeah, if you want even more spoilers, today is also Commander Precon spoiler day for this set, and Tomer is going to be covering that over on the MTGGoldfish Commander YouTube. So if you want to see a breakdown of all the sweet new cards from the Commander Precon decks, check that out. We also are showing one off ourselves in the MTGGoldfish Commander podcast, so check that out as well over on the MTGGoldfish Commander YouTube, and I will be back tomorrow one more time for the full set of March of the Machines, which should be revealed later tomorrow morning. So until then, have a great day, and I will talk to you soon.